One thing I noticed from a lot of creators is the process of starting your project can feel quite intimidating. Whether you're trying to create a comic, write a novel, develop a video game, or create your own independent film, it's that fear that usually comes from not knowing where to begin and how that process works. And because we have never done it before, we just assume that the process must be impossible. But most of the time, that isn't true. Sometimes the hardest part is simply just taking the risk and starting. And I talked about that in a previous video where I said that the best time to start a project is now. And if there's something that's holding you back, I suggest you go check out that video. It may inspire you to actually go out and begin your project. Now, when I decided to create Venus and Orion Comics, I had no idea how to make a comic. In fact, I actually formed the LLC for Venus and Orion Comics without fully understanding how the comic book production works. Was it reckless? Maybe, but it also forced me to take the project much seriously. From that moment forward, there was no turning back. I had my artist Shabibit, I was the writer. Now I just had to learn how to turn that script into an actual comic. And that became the process of trial and error, communication, and learning by actually doing. Now, the difference between comics and other mediums is the fact is that one of the first lessons that I've actually learned when it comes to writing a comic is that it's very different from writing a movie, a TV series, or even a novel itself. See, a movie moves in real time. A TV series has scenes, cuts, acts, music, and actual motion. And a novel allows you to describe thoughts, emotions, details, and atmosphere through prose. But comics, it's much differently. Comics live in panels. They rely on writing and artwork to pretty much work together. And the writer gives direction, and the artist gives story visual life. And the reader feels in the motions between the panels. That means not everything needs to be explained through the writing and the words itself. Sometimes the panel itself should do most of the talking. And that was pretty much a hard lesson for me to learn, because when I first started writing Orion Keller's Vampire Killers, I was still thinking like I was writing an anime or a movie. I wanted to explain everything. I wanted to include every piece of dialogue, every bit of world building, and every emotional beat. But comics don't work that way. You have limited space and every page matters. And when I was writing the first draft of Orion Keller's Vampire Killers Chapter 1, I remember sending one of those early pages to Chabibit. And I remember it was the intro, the opening to Orion Keller's Vampire Killers, featuring Hezekiah Draven himself. And in my mind, I thought it was pretty much simple. But Chabibit told me everything I wrote could not fit on one page. And in fact, it was going to probably take up 5 pages. And that alone was just the intro. And that moment taught me something important. Comic writing requires focus. You cannot overload every page with dialogue and exposition. And you have to decide what actually matters, what needs to be said, what needs to be shown, and what can be implied, and what can be saved for later. So a lot of dialogue and world building that was supposed to be in VK Chapter 1 had to be removed because it would have destroyed the pacing of the book in general. And honestly, that was pretty much the right call, because the comic needed to move, actually move. And another thing that people outside of the creation process seem to forget is that every page costs money. When you're writing a comic as an indie comic creator, your script is not just words on a page. Your script is a budget attached to it. Every extra page costs more money, more time, more production, more editing, and more printing costs. And that creates a challenge, because you don't want to cut corners at the expense of your story, but you also can't write like money doesn't exist. So this is where a lot of indie creators run into problems, because sometimes writers try to cram a bunch of panels onto one page to avoid increasing the page count. Sometimes that works as a creative choice, but if you're doing it to only save money, it can also hurt the flow of your story. And the artwork needs room to breathe. The reader needs to follow the action. And if every page is overloaded, the comic becomes exhausting to read. And this is why finding the right artist is important. And I've also talked about that and how much it costs to create a comic book. You can definitely check out that video as well. And I can't stress that enough. A comic is not just the writer's vision, it's a collaboration. What sounds good in your head doesn't necessarily mean that it will translate well onto the panels. And that's something that I also had to learn. And there were moments where I had this specific idea for a scene that should play out a specific way, but Chabibit found a better way to present it better, much more visually. And that is why I allow her to have creative freedom. She understands the tone of Orion Keller's Vampire Killers. She understands the characters. She understands how to translate my script into something that works onto the page. In chapter 1, there were moments that she added that weren't originally in my script. For example, she added the chibi panel, which was one of them. And the moment where Hezekiah calls out and says, "Well, am I right, vampires?" That was another panel. She added that herself. She filled in the blanks, or she filled in to add more to the story, or to flesh out Hezekiah more. And I really appreciate that. Yeah, that wasn't part of the script, but it worked. It added personality, it gave the scene more flavor, and it made the page feel stronger. And that is why trust between writer and artist matters. Now, with Orion Keller's Vampire Killers Chapter 2, the process has become much easier to manage. Not easy, but easier. Now, I have a better understanding of how I want the scripts to flow, and I understand pacing a bit better. I understand page counts a bit better, and I understand how to leave room for the artwork. The process usually begins with the script. Then Chabibit creates the rough drafts for the pages, and then we review those rough drafts together. If something needs to be adjusted, then we discuss it before we move on to the line art and also the final details. That review stage is very important, because once the page moves forward into production, changes become much more difficult and more expensive. Trust me. So the more communication you have early on, the better the final results become. And another part of the production you may not realize is the environment works, because Chabibit is an architect, and she also constructs many of the 3D backgrounds found in Orion Keller's Vampire Killers, and also some of my work or promotions that I have that actually have backgrounds in them. They are all 3D assets that she designed and built from scratch. Now, that process also happens before pages are even drawn. We have to know the locations and how it's going to visually look, especially when it comes to Neo-Delphia, where VK Chapter 1 or just VK series takes place in general. We have to understand how those environments look. We have to prepare those assets before they even appear in the comic. And yes, that also costs money. Before a comic page is even completed, there may already be calls connected to the background assets, environments, and location designs. So for Chapter 2, I'm excited for readers to actually get a chance to see the expansiveness and the locations of Neo-Delphia. The city begins to expand way beyond what was shown in Chapter 1, and I can't wait for you guys to actually experience that. The biggest thing that I learned from creating comics is that writing comics is its own skill. It's not the same as writing a movie or writing novels or writing for an anime. It's just totally, you have to think visually, you have to think about every panel, you have to respect the pacing, and you also have to respect the artists, and you also have to respect your readers. And you must understand that every page serves a purpose. That doesn't mean that you should cut corners. It never cut corners, because at the end of the day, that's going to affect you and your creative vision in the long run. But you need to be deliberate. Every panel should matter, every page should matter, and of course, every scene should push the story forward. Creating a comic can seem intimidating when you first start. I know it was for me, but the truth is, you learn by doing. You learn by writing the script. You learn by working with your artists. You learn by making mistakes. You learn by finishing pages. And you learn by releasing the damn book. Because when I started Venus and Orion Comics, I didn't learn everything before that process. I learned to figure things out as I was doing. And I still don't have it all figured out. And I think that's the fun part about this journey as a comic book creator, or just as a creator in general. And I enjoy the fact is that you guys are following me through this process, because you guys may be experiencing the same thing and you have your own creative journey. And with Orion Keller's Vampire Killers Chapter 2, I can already see how much of that process has evolved. And in future videos, I'm going to go a bit deeper into things like printing, formatting, production requirements, and what you need to do before turning your comic into a physical book. But for now, the main thing I really want you to understand is this. If you want to create a comic, do not let the process intimidate you. Start, learn, adjust, collaborate, and keep going. And this is how your comic becomes real. So that pretty much wraps up this video. I hope you get an understanding or grasp of how I had to go through the process of understanding how to write and create a comic. And if you guys are writing right now, or you're an artist thinking about going out there to create your own comic or manga, hopefully this video was some inspiration or give you an idea of what to expect and what your expectations should be. But yes, it's a completely different skill. It's a skill in its own when it comes to writing a comic and understand how panels work and how every page means something. It has to be deliberate, and it becomes a skill. It becomes a craft, and I'm enjoying every bit of it as I'm going through this, especially with chapter 2 of VK that will launch next year with his campaign in 2027. But if you enjoyed the video, definitely let me know in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on the creative process behind creating a comic? And have you experienced any of this? Or how do you approach creating a comic and writing a script, or how to strategically work the panels for each page? So if you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe button for more creator-driven content as far as creating comics and much more. This is Brian H. Blackson Jr. signing off.